Hello, everybody. All right, so I had to analyze a lot of things the last few weeks, and I look at all the different influencers all over Facebook and YouTube, and I don't even have it. I actually took Instagram off my phone because I don't even use Instagram. I don't send messages through pictures and selfies and all that shit. Occasionally I'll do a selfie to show you where I'm at, but yeah, I don't live in pictures. Okay, I really want to cultivate the brain, and I do the writing. I had to figure out, what is it? Why am I not so influential? Why am I not influential? Why aren't people listening to me, right? And so I study what it is that people gravitate towards. Because I look at everyone on my Facebook, and I look at their friends list, and I look at who their followers are. And I noticed another pattern. Oh, shit. You either look like an old sage, like a Gandalf the Grey, or something like out of the Lord of the Rings, the elders, the elven elders. Or you look like a princess. You look like a hot chick. You look like one big yoga pose. Okay? And so, yeah, that's aligned with the fact that Gen X gets ignored, middle child. It's either the old sage boomers that have influence, or it's the young hot chick millennials. They're all about shaking their ass at everyone and pleasure and paradise and partying, and that's pretty much it. Some of them will go into the academics, but even then that doesn't really pay very well. So they go into OnlyFans, Instagram. Because that pays better when you can shake your ass at people, not use your brain, because you only get paid, what, $20 an hour using your brain, you get paid $100 an hour showing off your body. Well, you were bred to do that. And so I realized, oh, I know why people aren't listening to me, even in the J world. I know why people have even stopped following me, even in the J world. You know why? Because I'm not shaking my ass, showing my tits. I don't have a flat stomach doing yoga poses. I'm not selling you pleasure and paradise. I'm not into the parties. And I'm not an old sage. I'm not some old maid that you're like, oh, wow, she's a Gaia mother. Oh, wow, I should gravitate towards her because she has wisdom. And I see that. I see what's going on all over fucking Facebook. And I'm like, oh, my God. Oh, my Lord. Now I get it. The system made sure that you listen to only the young hot chicks that will shake their ass at you, and you're like, oh, look, a young hot chick, or some old sage that looks like Gandalf the Grey, or somebody from, the Elven Kingdom. Some matronly, handsome woman that has something good to say. And so then I'm watching Grey's Anatomy, and of course, all the doctors, and the doctors, the attending, the residents, first year, second year residents, interns, whatever, they're either young girls and boys, highly sexualized, or they're the elder doctors, the chief of surgery, the chief of this, the chief of that, and they have the gray hair, and they have, you're watching the succession of Grey's Anatomy, where they start out as interns, and then they become up there to be almost chief, and you see how that whole scenario of who people bow down to. And then you're looking at the Bible. Who do people listen to? Oh, the Moses types, the Abraham types. All those religions, the Abrahamic religions. It's all about the old sages. The Gandalf the Greys. Or is someone as beautiful as Jesus? Why do you think Jesus is so gorgeous? Jesus doesn't look like an average person. People wouldn't bow down to Jesus if he looked average. So they made him beautiful. Then that's why you see the Caucasianified Jesus with the white skin and the long flowing hair and the chiseled face, maybe some muscles. And that's what people gravitate towards. It's pretty insidious, the programming of what the system wanted people to bow down to and listen to and take cues from. And that's why people who have midlife crises, they go and get fancy cars. Like these men back in the 80s when the midlife crisis was in their 40s, over the hill. Remember those years of black balloons in the 80s? And it would say, over the hill, happy over the hill, right? And it's their 40s, right? And they're like, oh, God. And so then these men who are like, okay, well, I'm not young and hot Chuck. But I say hot chicks and hot Chucks. So he's not a hot Chuck anymore. He's 40. Well, now that he's 40, it's time to go get a fast car, a red car, to then be like an extension to the PNIS, or, you know, attract people with a fast car, attract hot chicks with a fast car, until you can't fight time anymore. And then you become the old sage. You become a Gandalf the Grey. You become Moses. You become Jesus would be probably a middle-aged, but a beautiful, hot middle-aged person that's kept their youth. So now I know why people have not even in the J world, even in the Jilly Juice world, only probably a few people are sticking with it, right? Because I've seen people go off because they have to follow someone who looks like a hot Chuck. Not some average middle-aged person who's not an old sage and who's not a hot chick or a Chuck. Yeah. Oh my God. It is so clear, which is why the New World Order was not going to have a problem with me, because I am not influential. Because you all have been programmed to follow sex and love and yoga poses and pleasure and paradise. Or you're going to go eventually, after all that's done, then you're going to go be a hot sage. Not a hot sage, an old sage. You'll become one of the elders. And which is why even religions, they have the elders that you have to bow down to. The elders of your society, the elders in your family, the elders in that religion. Why do they call it, even in the Mormon religion, the elders? Because they're the ones that have the wisdom for you to gravitate towards. Don't listen to that average middle-aged person that's not young and hot and impressionable. Listen to the elders, because they have everything. And then you see that in the religious world. You see that in the politics world. You see that in academics. Oh my gosh. It's so crazy what I've figured out. So I will never be influential, because I will stay like this, middle-aged, not really too remarkable in the looks, and I'm not going to be like old and decrepit. If no one knew who I was, and I just walked down the street, I'd look like some average 30 or 40-year-old that no one's going to listen to. I'm not young and 25 and skinny with long hair and big lips. Well, I have big lips, but, you know, the skinny body and the big boobs and all that. People are going to overlook me. Well, they even have in the J world, because, again, I don't fit the specific archetype that the system programmed people to bow down to. It's a trip. And that's fine. I mean, I had to really understand it. I had to understand what goes on in the minds of humans and what influences them. And yeah, that's why they programmed people to be hot or extremely smart, fitting those archetypes, right? And so when I wanted to kind of encapsulate everything from the last video, well, based from the last video, like evolution, evolution, and then from that point on, I wrote something, but I'll read this and I'll then go back to where I left off from the last video. And so influential opposing forces live within you, regardless of your politics, religion, and science dogmas. Remember the whole positive and negative? And so I was watching Grey's Anatomy yesterday, and one of the episodes were focusing on teratomas attacking the person's brain. So the person was getting seizures all the time. They were brought into the hospital to get seizures, and then Ellen Pompeo, her Meredith, her character was saying, "Oh, it's a teratoma." They did a biopsy and pulled it out, and they were like, "Oh wow, it's a teratoma." And so while they called the microbes from the teratoma antibodies, in reality, relative to perspective, the microbes from the teratoma are the antigen. See, antigen and antibody program, it's all relative to the perspective that you come from. Okay? You develop antibodies, but the antigen could be in you, which is why you have the blood types, blood type A and B. You have opposing forces within you. That's monsters or people are fighting in the blood types world. Because you have antigen, but you don't have a balanced force of antibodies, so you have this monster within you that you're fighting, and it's taking resources from you. And that's why the blood type A's and B's are more susceptible to infection and other issues, as well as cancer, disease, and chronic illness, because they don't have enough antibody protection. And in a highly influential environment, that opposing force is going to destroy the person, which is what's happening. Okay? And so while they call the microbes from the teratoma antibodies, in reality, relative to perspective, the microbes from the teratoma are the antigen. Even though they characterize the attacks in the brain as a body attacking itself, which is the autoimmune disorders, which could be true on some level, it was actually the opposing force that's stuck in the body attacking the host. See, I felt the demon in my body a long ass time ago, and I was crying from it. In 1999, I couldn't figure out what the fuck was going on. But that's when the beast woke up. See, all of us have been programmed at some point, and when we get that first diagnosable condition, it's when the beast wakes up and your body realizes that it's there and wants to push it out, and then there's the fight. The body wants to push it out. The person doesn't want to feel the pain and suffering, so they're on these drugs and alcohol and pleasure and paradise to escape the war within. And so everything is relative to the perspective you are coming from. The body does not attack itself, no different than you attacking yourself and then profess to want to live unharmed and pain-free. So what is possessing the person in the body, mind, and spirit, causing the person to be spiritually attacked inside, attracting predators who find ways to physically attack them on the outside? What causes extreme love and hate from people towards others or towards themselves? I will give you the answer. It is the opposing forces living in you that was programmed into your genetic line since way back in the days of antiquity, and the system capitalized on those opposing forces. Well, how do they get there? It's from all the remedies. Alchemy. It's alchemy. They knew this way back in the days of 2700 BC. Imhotep. He was bred to learn everything. He was young, under 20. He was like a little adult, under 20. He learned physics and chemistry and architecture and alchemy and surgery. He was the first physician. They understood alchemy way back when, of course. That's the Rosicrucians, which is why when you go to the Rosicrucian Museum, it's all about alchemy and the Egyptian antiquity artifacts and the tombs. And so people do not commit homicide, suicide, or infanticide or cut themselves unless they were overridden by opposing forces trying to self-destruct. Which is why the holistic allopathic and energy healing world of herbal remedies and the Department of Energy and the hidden hand called the CIA all work together, rooting out the monsters in our society who intend to do harm to themselves and their society. Well, how do they do that? The surgical world cut out the opposing forces. Cuts out the opposing forces. The herbalistic energy holistic people keep developing so many offspring, the monsters within destroy the person within. Or they wake up the monster. And the prescription drug market, illicit drugs, cannabis, attempts to drug the monsters within. When you see how many people are afflicted via their practices in the health and wellness world and their addictions, the monsters are being rooted up and out for the world to see. It doesn't mean all of them are bad and dangerous. It just means that that person is fighting a force within that isn't necessarily dangerous or bad, but if there was programming in their childhood or in their world that caused them to be so aggressively violent and hunting people, which we do see on the internet, then yeah, the system is looking for those types. They look for stalkers. They look for people who do these to other people. What is this? Where they hunt and stalk and bully and troll. And sometimes the system does it to people so they can get the best out of them, but also the system is looking for those who do it to other people because they think they have the license to. Who? The people who hunt other people, who stalk them. You see all the trolls that go after certain people. I have no idea who really the trolls are in my world. Some of them are organic. Some of them are probably synthetic, and I'll never know the difference between the two. We have bred and fostered monsters in our society because of our practices in the fertility world and the people's fear of evolution. The system is you. Once most of us realize we are the ones who hold the enemy within, who hold the enemy within, and we start exorcising those opposing forces out of our own immune system, we might have a peaceful world. Okay? Until then, the government will clamp down on those opposing forces in people's bodies as those opposing forces in people's bodies are on the move and the hunt. So I gotta make sure I hold, and that's enemy. Yeah, I didn't put the H in that. By the way, it is not your fault. Okay, you were born into a world full of monsters, and we see them prosecuted for crimes against humans. But you had to see them. The government let them proliferate so you could see the evidence what monsters do when given the opportunity to do the crimes. Hollywood, the music industry, government, politics, religion, science. But since the system cannot force people to recognize these things within their own immune system that they foster, they can only give you choices, and then you have to be responsible for your choices. And then you look at your society. You look at who's on trial, who is doing what, and you're like, wow, you can't even tell. Like Epstein, would you even know who Epstein was unless you got a gut feeling or you knew his background? So if you didn't have a gut feeling or knew his background, you would invite him into your house for dinner. You would introduce him to your kids. If you didn't know his background or had a gut feeling about him that you couldn't pinpoint. See, predators don't always look like monsters that you see in, all over the fantasy world. Sometimes predators look like your average next door neighbor. You don't know people. You don't know their background, their lifestyle, their belief systems. And you don't want to know the hard way. You don't want to learn the hard way. But people do. I mean, I did. Just like I can't help anyone anymore in the J world because you're the one that had to sit with the pain and suffering of what you fostered and cultivated your whole life. Even when provided with a different information, people still resist it. Which is why I don't have a group. People ask the same questions over again. They're going to do what they're going to do. I have no influence. And it's okay. I don't need to have influence. Because the system programmed people to be so resistant to pain and suffering and not change that they don't have any more energy to convert to change, and so they're stuck in the system, the body that they're in. That opposing force in their body is pretty much in control. And that's why I said the skinnier people will have a harder time pushing that enemy out unless they're willing to take on the substance and deal with that situation. And that is something that I can't legislate. I can't tell people, oh, you got to eat food and convert energy to release and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, no freaking way. And so, which is why they developed hot chicks, old sages, so you could be under the influence and hypnotized by those who are afflicted, bringing up the monsters within you and then destroying it and you through love and hate and sexuality. People say they love you. Oh, I love you. Here's an herb. Oh, I love you. Here's a surgery. Oh, I love you. Here's this. Oh, I hate you. And then you're like reacting and using up energy to react to someone who hates you. And then sexuality. Yeah, bringing up hormones that you probably can't afford, but people do because they're under the influence, and then there you go. They deplete you that way. Which is why I will never get anyone listening to me, really, because I'm not a hot chick or an old sage. I'm just a middle-aged person. Okay? Most people will ignore. Who do people ultimately follow? Old sage boomers with degrees and licenses and their yoga poses and flat stomach and all of their diet regimes. And hot millennial Gen X chicks and chucks, right? Who's a chuck? Well, some hot dude. You see them all over Hollywood, all over the movies. Because they were told to fight age with Botox and plastic surgery and stay young and hot and sexual until they can't anymore. Then they will embrace the old sage mentality and train all the hot chicks and chucks to do exactly what you did. They did. And so you can't, and you can be hot chick and chuck and smart selling people what the system wants you to sell. I was a hot chick. I was strategic and crafty, cunning. I wasn't like book smart. That came the last 7 years because I had to sit with everything and prove my claims. Okay. And so, which is why I was good in sales too, which is why the Bible is so influential, because who do you listen to? Moses or someone as beautiful as Jesus? Because you can even see the nerds out there dating the hot chicks or enamored by hot chicks and chucks. Why do you think hot chicks and chucks are in the news industry? Because average middle-aged people are not very influential. That was developed way before your time, and it was for a reason. But now you see how the system programs people to self-destruct. They position people in society to take on roles of authority, and sometimes it's youth and age is what gets people, or the perception of youth and old sage. And this happens so much in the religious world. Hot religious chicks selling you something, or hot atheist chicks selling you science and spirituality and cannabis. And then hot chucks hypnotizing everyone. I just stay far away. I used to be a hot chick, and it was a fucking curse. And that was the PMDD. And I suffered every month from it. Which is also why Gen X chicks that were hot back in the 80s and 90s and are being told not to wear makeup or embracing deterioration. Because they want the older Gen X chicks to embrace looking like a normal female going to shit at an earlier age. Remember when 40 was over the hill? People in their 50s and above will be fighting the change and having their own midlife crisis. Men also go through the change just like women. And they will either embrace it and understand it. It's not about sexuality and destruction or a constant party. The party was over for me 7 years ago. I mean, it was always over for me. Even though I did party, but I was still struggling to survive in a society who didn't understand the monster I was fighting within. Because the monster that I had was not recognized back in the 90s and 2000. PMDD, what's that? Remember, they did so many experiments on the kids back in the 80s, on the heels of the 60s and 70s, on the heels of the 30s and 40s and 50s. And so new diseases arise from all the innovation. To get kids to get women to be hot, it had to happen somewhere. To get men to be hot and sexual, it had to happen somewhere. And there was a combination of nature and nurture. And it didn't always happen in the family. Sometimes, your family has a certain influence, and then it's your peers that are influencing the monster within. Why do you think they had Fast Times at Ridgemont High? Why do you think they have the movie The Hot Chick? Why do you think they have the movie like American Pie? That's all programming, even in your high school, public school, private school, peers, the movies. Now you have the internet. Now you have, video games that are programming people in a specific way. And so the party was over for me 7 years ago. It was always over for me because I was struggling to survive in a society who didn't understand the monster I was fighting within. It's not just about the body. It is about cultivating your brain and understanding how your brain and your body must work together, and not through Botox and muscles and a flat stomach with yoga poses. Because when you go through the change and you'll go through you'll go through a major ugly stage. People are going to say you're unhealthy and ugly and force you to get cured. Remember the last 7 years, the changes I went through? People were like, oh my gosh, she's so ugly. Oh my gosh, she's this. Oh my gosh, she's that. She's so unhealthy. Oh, she's hawking up mucus. She's so unhealthy. She's this. Oh yeah. Do you hear me hawking up a lot of mucus now? Occasionally when the climate changes, I have to hawk out mucus, but not like I was back in 2020, 2021. I had to deal with that the last 3 years. And even then, oh, here we go. Because when you go through the change, you will go through a major ugly stage. People are going to say you're unhealthy and ugly and force you to get cured. I had to deal with that the last 3 years. And even then, when the climate shifts, I look a bit more bloated than usual. And so I changed with my environment. I don't force my body to stay cured and hot and sexual because everyone expects it. And I won't be an old sage to please anyone. So no, I'm not impressed with these 25-year-olds shaking their asses at people. And I'm not impressed with people my age trying to stay young, because you're causing such resistance. How will you survive when the climate changes yet again? And in this environment, you will change constantly because you have to, which means this is the time to prioritize. But hey, you don't have to listen to me, right? Because I don't have a flat stomach or look like an old maid. I'm just your average middle-aged person that you will ignore because you can't handle the pain and suffering. So people seek pleasure and paradise, and that's not me. You will follow those who are into pleasure and paradise dressed up as politics, religion, and science. And so again, watch your religious community. Watch who is influential. And it will be some older middle-aged person that has the religious world behind them, speaking about Satan and all this other stuff, and blasphemy and the New World Order. And they have the whole religious community right behind them, backing them up. Or you have somebody that's older or someone that's younger. But someone like me, again, I'm not very influential. Obviously, a few people that have stayed consistent with the J world, a few, I can count on my hands what I know of. I can't even count. It's like uncountable how many have following, but are just like, yeah, she's stupid. Yeah, she's not. Yeah. Oh, I already know I'm just an entertainment piece to most people. I'm just something to laugh at. I'm just a joke. But fine, whatever. It's your own fucking funeral. And so I've been getting emails from people asking me about the J juice and then wanting to come back. And you know what? I don't even answer. So don't email me. I have the emails there for anything that might look legit that I might be interested in, but that's very few and far between. And really, that's just there to catch what could be what I'm ready for at the time. But at this point, people emailing me, if you haven't figured out where my latest Facebook page is and watch the videos and get my latest book if you want, it's not required. I'm not answering any emails about the J juice or what you should do for your pain and suffering. No, I'm sorry. I wish I could help you. I wish I could go back and help you through your process, but I can't. I've been receiving emails lately from people of the past wanting me to help them get back into the J world. This is why the system does not want you to get involved with other people's health issues, because you'll be in way over your head, especially now. Especially now. If I even touch anyone back and forth through email, and I won't, and a person experiences something that they would anyways, regardless, guess who would they blame? They would blame me. They're not ready to feel pain. They already feel pain and suffering. So I'm not going to insert myself in the middle of someone's situation and make claims that you can't make, because that's not what we're about in the J world. It's to take away people's pain and suffering, causing eventual death and destruction. So they already experienced what they should be experiencing. Now they have to feed it and pull out the crap and rest and relax and stay home and stay safe and wear a mask if need be. But can you tell people that, especially those in the J world that are in the conspiracy world that don't want to stay home and stay safe? They don't want to wear a mask. They don't want to feel pain and suffering. They already have a position about the VACCINESs. They're all about organic and eating the right kind of foods, feeding the right kind of things. I'm not going up against that. There's no fucking way. So I just don't even answer anymore. And so this is why the system does not want you to get involved with other people's health issues. You'll be in way over your head. When people ask you to take away their pain and suffering, wanting a remedy in this environment, you could be destroying them with your lay person's recommendations of remedies and supplements. Because maybe they can't afford another colony forming unit of offspring from your remedies and supplements. What do you mean? Because when you put a positive and negative together, you get an offspring. Negative times a positive equals a negative. That's an offspring that will work against you. Do you not know? See, I learned that in the chemistry world, because I studied chemistry the last 7 years. I studied physics. I studied math. I understand that the integers and that whole integer rules of negative times a positive and positive times a negative and negative times negative and positive times a positive is all about the microbes that are reduced down to binary arguments and also plus and minus. And so when you bring in a male and a female together, when you look at it from a really rudimentary, basic point of view, and they have the egg is the positive and the semen is the negative, and you have then an explosion, a chemical reaction called conception, then for all intents and purposes, you have a baby, an offspring. That offspring is working against the parents. Already, when you've developed a baby, they're taking infrastructure from you. And then when the baby is born, they're taking your time and your resources from you. That's and negative working against both the positive and negative. And so when you're taking a supplement, when you're taking an antibiotic, when you're taking a prescription drug, when you're taking a drug, illicit drug, when you're breathing in all the air fresheners, you're developing offspring that you're going to have to release someday, or it's going to turn into an opposing force metastasizing, and then you get a diagnosable condition or a fast-moving cancer or a change in personality. And so when people ask you to take away their pain and suffering, wanting a remedy in this environment, you could destroy them with your layperson's recommendations of remedies and supplements and herbs, and cannabis. Because maybe they can't afford another colony-forming unit of offspring from your remedies and supplements and drugs. I can't tell a person they should feel pain. I can't tell a person they should eat all food in the food supply. I can't even get involved. There's no way I can condition someone to deal with embracing the pain of life. And they can only read my latest book and see what I did, but even then I can't even promise you relief. Okay, there's no guarantee. Death is the only guarantee of pain relief. That ought to fucking flip your lid. That for you to claim and make recommendations to take away people's pain and suffering, you have to have a license for it. Because even then, if there's something on the market that people are recommending in these diet settlement groups, you're not the one to recommend somebody whatever it is that's on the market. You don't know their background. You don't know their lifestyle. You don't know their genetic predisposed issues. Who the fuck are you to recommend anything to anybody? Death is the only guaranteed pain relief. But again, the system will pick and choose what they will enforce. When they know they want to get rid of a lot of people, they're not going to get in the way and say, okay, we're going to shut down all these holistic groups, all these diet settlement groups. They want to see and observe what people are doing, so that way, when the time is right, there will be the evidence. What people have done matched with science. I'm already telling you what's going on, but you're not going to listen to me. I'm some middle-aged average person you're not going to fucking listen to. But the system will have the evidence to show you, yeah, when you recommended that garlic oil, that colloidal silver, when you recommended all these different herbal remedies and prescription drugs, you developed offspring in that person that will then eventually turn into a fast-moving cancer, because that fast-moving cancer is the opposing force that people are dealing with, that don't know how to release because they were told not to. They were taking certain remedies to close up and constrict their blood vessels and constrict their immune system from releasing. They were told to use these creams to put on whatever it is that was coming to surface, essentially pushing the enemy back into the body. But you can't tell anyone this. Let authority tell people this when they want to. They're not ready to tell you this yet because they want to see the evidence. They need to have a certain amount of people passing away at their own hand by their own choices. And then when all the conditions are right, way later on, the system will then finally say, this is what happens. This is where cancer comes from. This is where disease comes from. But right now, it's not the time. So I'm just a little tiny voice from a middle-aged person no one's going to fucking listen to. And so I just say it for my own fucking benefit, just to be satisfied that I understand what's going on. And to help me write better. Because when you're learning how to write and communicate, you have to come from a point of a vantage point that inspires the written word. And so this is what I'm manifesting. Well, what is it? This is what I'm using to better my writing and communication skills, is through the J World, my platform. And so death is the only guaranteed pain relief. And you're not licensed to destroy anyone at the micro level or macro level. So you can't claim cures or pain-free anything. And so we all come from different backgrounds. Even though we're not special, typical results may vary. I can never promise you relief. And maybe you hold a blood clot that once it gets activated, once it gets on the move, you have to complete the release process. If not, that blood clot could kill you. That's why I don't want to deal with massage therapists. I'm not recommending massage to anyone. I'm not recommending anyone to touch anyone. I'm not recommending people to touch themselves. I mean, when I went through all the headaches And when I was basically like died a couple of years ago, who knows? There could have been, that's why I had the headache, there could have been a blood clot that was being pushed through the head. I could have died a couple of years ago with all the headaches. But the fact I didn't says that, okay, are you special? No, maybe it's because of all the food that I ate. Maybe because I conditioned my head and my hair and my brain and everything to handle the pain and suffering. And I fed the body all food. Meat, milk, cheese, eggs, sugar, gluten, electrolytes, fruits and vegetables. I didn't leave anything off the table because I knew that my vessels, whatever they're blood vessels or intestines, needed to be reinforced. I couldn't afford to starve myself. And so when finally the body was pushing through who knows what, blood clots, jetsam, flotsam, there was no heart attack or stroke or aneurysm because the body was still able to push it through, even though it was painful. Because the energy, the body was able to handle the body pushing all that stuff through the lymphatic system. Which is why then sometimes I get rashes on my armpits and why my underwear smells like ammonia, because the acids that are developing through that energy conversion then converts things and helps regulate the acids and turns it into ammonia, and the body releases. And sometimes that has to happen. Let me tell you, when you're releasing the things that could turn into cancer, disease, and chronic illness, it doesn't smell very nice. But that's part of the process. If you want to close up your body so you don't smell or have any rashes or have anything, then fine, you'll supernova. You'll die suddenly. That's what happens with people when they close up their body. And so maybe you hold a blood clot that once it gets activated, once it gets on the move, you have to complete the release process or that blood clot will kill you. And so I have to ignore all emails of people trying to come back and ask me what they should do, first in my world. Because again, I can't lead you through that process. At this point now, yeah, you're a doctor. But I can't tell you anything. The environment's going to be so bad that those who have not been following my evolution will be coming back at the 11th hour, wanting relief. That's not going to happen. You had to condition for the pain and suffering. That was the last 3 years. Okay? So I sat with the pain and suffering the last 3 years. I stayed home and stayed safe the last 3 years. Sometimes I even wore a mask. Not inside, but when I was out there, I wore a mask. My husband's like, what the hell are you doing? But he's O negative. He was able to process stuff through. He didn't have half as many shit that I had to deal with. I came in at a deficit. I wasn't raised in Ohio on meat, milk, cheese, and eggs, and with strong bones from an Appalachian and then from Scottish, Irish, German background. I'm from Vietnam, a little Asian girl that was starving, in deficit, programmed in the Silicon Valley. Okay, I have a lot more to catch up to than my husband. So while he is not wearing a mask and be like, why are you wearing a mask? I had to do that just to lessen the amount of load that I would get from the public. I employed delivery services when I didn't want to go out there in the public catching whatever was in the environment. I had to change my life. I had to stay away from people. And when I was around people like Diverse Company, I blew up like a Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. And then the next day, the release process was so brutal, hives and whatever, heartburn, coughing out mucus because the body took on major activated particles when I was in mixed company or environment. And so I had to I loaded myself up with milk and meat and cheese and eggs and fruits and vegetables the last 3 years. I took the time. I'm sorry, I wish I could help people, but I can't condition them to deal with pain and suffering and tell them to support the pain with milk and meat and cheese and eggs because they could be allergic. Maybe they're politically against the food supply. And so there's nothing I can do if they're in starvation mode. And even then, you can't tell people what to do. Even as a nurse, you're not their doctor. Even holistic professionals should not be advising people what to do. They're not the doctors for that person. I can't tell them to pull the Tootsie Rolls out of their colon because it takes a while for the body to get those Tootsie Rolls down that far for them to reach it. That's the thing, is when I coughed, sneezed, and blew my nose, that pressure that I leveraged with that fucking monster in my colon that I knew had to get out because I could feel it. It had to be pushed through the leverage of my nose up here. But people who don't even blow their nose up here can't even leverage down there. So the monster is stuck inside them and they can't get it out. And it's what's torturing them and causing then the deterioration process. And so I can't tell them to pull those Tootsie Rolls out of their colon because it takes a while for the body to get those Tootsie Rolls down that far for them to reach it. I can't tell people to embrace explosive diarrhea because the environment shifted, causing spontaneous combustion. I have to walk away. I had to walk away. And I don't like doing that because I am human. I want to help people. But I know when I'm in way over my head. In this environment, everyone in the health and wellness field are in way over their head. Even the hospital system. We did it to ourselves. I had to walk away. I have to save myself. And you see in the diet Sunday groups when people are saying they're going to the hospital and the emergency rooms are full of people that are overflowing into the hallways. Some people are not getting seen right away and they die in the waiting room, but that doesn't always happen. I don't want to totally scare you, but I mean, this is this thing when you have climate shifts, electricity, climate, whatever, waking up the opposing forces in people, causing that demon to be on the move, causing breakage, causing vital organ failure, died suddenly, causing then also other types of diagnosable conditions people feel. People either have to feed it and release it and stay home and stay safe, or they go get treated until there's nothing else to treat. Until then, the system's like, okay, well, we can't treat you anymore. It's called hospice. When they can't treat you anymore, that's called hospice. And that's looming for a lot of people who are on that track. And if you can't condition yourself with pain and suffering on your own and eat all food in the food supply, there's nothing anyone can do. You can't make people condition to save themselves. They were under an impression that this is what life is. No pain, no suffering, pleasure in paradise, party until you die, and then that's it. Well, if that's what you expect, to die anyways, then it shouldn't be a surprise when it happens, even before you expect it. You were never promised a long life. And so what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right? And so there's a meme called influenza is an electrical disease. Well, absolutely. So 1889, power line radiation, 1918, radio era, 1957, the radar era, 1968, satellite era, Russian flu, Spanish flu, Asian flu, Hong Kong flu. Ever since man began to control electricity in 1746, there has been contamination of the global electrical circuit. Past pandemics followed after new electrical rollouts, such as electric power lines, radio, radar, satellite technology. That implies drastic and rapid changes in the Earth's electromagnetic field can cause illness. And if you're holding in those opposing forces within your body, because the electricity that's in the environment now is making me smarter, because I released the demons the last 3 fucking years, but it was hell. But now I am capitalizing on the electricity in the environment, and I'm becoming smarter and smarter and smarter and motivated and not afraid at all of disease out there, because I can handle it. I can release the demons and eat food. And so I mentioned this before, that electricity is what caused all the different cancers. Okay, but did electricity really cause cancer, or just activate what you already held inside because you didn't release the demons properly and you starved yourself? Electricity doesn't cause cancer. People hold opposing forces within, and electricity just activates what is predominantly in control at the time. And you foster those demons through antibiotic supplements and closing up your body's orifices of release. Now I gotta correct that. Time. Delete. Jesus Christ. I go so fast I don't even read everything. Okay, and so in the future we'll have 8 languages. 500 million will be speaking 8 different languages. The internet will be the happy meeting between everyone translating everything. Doesn't that concern people? Can you imagine those who are Indonesian and they don't have Indonesian as on the Georgia Guidestones? I don't know what Indonesian people speak. But, I mean, you look at Japanese. Why isn't Japanese as one of the 8 languages? Maybe they will. I don't know. Who knows? I don't know. And so, doesn't that concern people? One better learn one of these languages and reside in an area that speaks predominantly one of these languages. I am Vietnamese, but only speak English. So moving clockwise around the structure from due north, these languages on the Georgia Guidestones were English, Spanish, Swahili, Hindi, Hebrew, Arabic, traditional Chinese, and Russian. The languages were chosen because they represent most of humanity, except for the Hebrew, which was chosen because its connection to Judaism and Christianity. Okay, so this whole thing now, where I got this whole old sage and all this stuff, I had to draw a picture. So I picked, people from Lord of the Rings, and then, of course, Dr. Phil. He's the old sage with the license, right? And so who do people listen to? They listen to an old sage like Gandalf the Grey. They listen to an old sage like Cate Blanchett in Lord of the Rings when she was a lead elven lady. Or whatever she is. The hot chick like Megan Fox. She was in Transformers. The hot Chuck like this guy, I don't know his name, but he's cute. And then, let's see. Dr. Phil McGraw, he's an old sage with a license. And then Oprah Winfrey, the old sage with a star appeal. And then who? Would you listen to me? The cat bitch, right? That's what I was called many years ago. Who's Jillian? She's just some Generation X that's 50 in 2024. Oh, why would you listen to me? Why would my own peers listen to me, right? Yeah, my own peers will listen to a millennial, a young hot millennial, hot chick and Chuck, or my own peers who are Generation X will listen to an old sage, a boomer, to go and tell them how to live life and what to do for cancer, disease, and chronic illness. But they won't listen to their own peers like me. No, they'll do, well, why should they listen to me, right? Who am I? Who the fuck am I? Well, I get it. I understand. I'm nothing to most people. Because I'm not a hot chick millennial or a hot Chuck, and I'm not some old sage boomer that's going to tell you how to live your fucking life. And so, yeah, the average middle-aged person is not going to be paid attention to. Unless I'm some Gen X chick that looks like they're trying to channel her youth, or then become the old sage and be like the all-knowing Gaia mother in her filmy outfits and all of her herbal remedies and everything else. So yeah, I'm pretty much, going to be ignored, which at this point I don't give a fuck. Whatever. And so what did I say about that? Well, I mean, I do, but I don't. Because what are you going to fucking do? You can't make people listen to you. They already know they already have the people they follow. They follow who they follow. Now you know where the midlife crisis comes from. So you've been groomed to be hot, even if there is nothing underneath your skull cap. And then whatever it is that you're doing will carry weight until you become middle-aged and ignored. Okay, so yeah, I wasn't programmed for anything specific. So whatever I got into, I was able to sell it, whatever it was. Whether it's boyfriends or insurance or getting into, the admin industry or in the military. And so I was hot and I had fun going out and doing things and matching up with people who were influential because I was hot. Okay? And so you've been groomed to be hot even if there's nothing underneath your skull cap. And then whatever it is that you're doing will carry weight until you become middle-aged and ignored. Until you start gaining the wrinkles of wisdom, knowing a little bit more than some people because of your age. And of course, having children makes you the wise old owl. So now you're a mom or a dad and you know everything. And then you become a grandmother and know even more, so you're told. And so if you have a voice and you are neither a hot chick or an old sage or a mother, you're just an average person no one listens to. So I have no kids, I'm not a hot chick, and I'm not a mother, well, same thing, and I'm not an old sage. So I will be overlooked. That's fine. Fuck it. I don't care. I get it. Because you don't have the sex appeal and you don't look like Gandalf the Grey or someone in Lord of the Rings. That's how the system got us, which is why they want older people in high-level positions like president or whatever, because they get taken seriously. But a young person wouldn't necessarily have the experience. It's the middle-aged people who are ignored unless they keep their hotness and their youth or they let themselves go and become the matronly handsome. Don't worry, New World Order. I'm not going to get in the way and make a dent in what you're doing. The agenda will still go on. Hot chicks will still be hot chicks doing hot chick shit. Wise old men and women will be doing what they do, selling new remedies and wisdom. Don't worry, the agenda will go on. Too many people are listening to dying hot chicks and dying wise old owls or old sages. They're not even paying attention to me. And if they are just laughing at me, whatever. I go on Facebook every day to improve myself because I know there ain't nothing I can do to reach people unless I show them some TNA. I'm not prostituting myself like that. So I represent the brain, not the body. And that's not really, people who are not really dealing with their brain, they're not going to pay attention to me. And so, Oh, yeah. Watching Grey's Anatomy, sometimes they have some really good one-liners. And so they're talking about, the narration. Sometimes the voiceover, Ellen Pompeo narrating some of the episodes. She said, would have made a difference if you knew what was coming. Could today or past events be the best days of your life because of what was coming down the pipeline? Because once you know what was to come, that would be the end of your life as you knew it. 9/11, 2001, 20 years ago. People hold on to what they think life was, because once they know what is to come, that will be the end to their life as they knew it. That was my situation almost 20 years ago in the conspiracy world, post 9/11. That was my situation almost 20 years ago in the conspiracy world, post 9/11. Okay, so once I knew there was a different storyline, that was the end of the world as I knew it. So I learned about 9/11 was an inside job actually in 2006, actually at Chapman University, because one of my professors showed loose change, which was questioning the whole official narrative of 9/11. Okay, but I was like, I wasn't ready to hear that. I was like, okay. Like, I just wasn't at that. I was in survival mode. I wasn't into, let me go exploring a conspiracy. But I was shown that movie in college. It wasn't from my peers, because conspiracy wasn't really too much. When I was in Sacramento and I was working for St. Hope or Insurance, or St. Hope, which was a Sacramento high school. And there was no conspiracy people there. There was Kevin Johnson, the basketball player, principal, CEO, and there was all the PhDs, the teachers, or the bachelors, and the students. No one was in the conspiracy world over there in the mainstream. So listening to that movie, Loose Change, didn't really take hold. But it was there. It was a seed that was planted, because then later on, when I was ready to hear stuff, when I wasn't in survival mode, and that was a few years later, that was in 2011, when I was listening to the Obama deception through Alex Jones on the channel in YouTube, changed the channel, which I don't even know if it's still there anymore. Then I fell into the conspiracy world. And then that's when my whole world came crashing down. So once I knew there was a different storyline, that was the end of the world as I knew it. And I remember mourning so hard in that moment in time. And I was on the truck with my husband, messaging everyone on Facebook that I had. It was like my old high school class or whoever, saying, I'm getting off of Facebook. Oh my God, we're all going to fucking die. I mean, I was freaking out. Sometimes it pays just to stay asleep if you can't control your situation, because once you see it, there's no going back. People who stay in the conspiracy world and don't change the way they do things to survive what they know is here and coming down the pipeline, you're only torturing yourself, which I don't understand. You're in the conspiracy world, okay? You know what's coming, what's here, but you're not changing anything. Okay, so you're going from prescription drugs to holistic drugs. That's when you have to understand reducing down everything to its common denominator, which is antibiotics. And then also, what's your intention? Taking away pain with a holistic remedy is no different than taking away pain with some pharmaceutical, especially in this environment, because it activates things, it makes it stronger. That's why you've seen all the overdoses. Mainstreamers who have no intention of changing anything can't even relate to my information. I'm just another entertainment piece of someone to laugh at. That's your gift. Ignorance is bliss. I guess it's better than knowing what's to come, right? So enjoy your ignorance. Nothing should be a shock to you because you've expected the outcome anyways. It might be earlier than you expected, but if it happens to you, you'll find a way to cope, or blame, or no existence. What are you talking about, Jillian? You'll know when it happens to you because your world will come crashing down. It happened to me several times over. It happened to me a long time ago. I had my own 9/11 before 9/11. Well, when was that? Oh, when I was a kid, when I figured out. See, here's the thing. I didn't know it back then, but the last few years when I figured out that whole contrived situation, why my sister and I are not close, it's because my mother just developed a situation that didn't exist just to see who would rise up to the level of her expectations, who would be the one to strategize the other person admitting something that never happened? When you can get someone to admit something that never happened, you know how influential and persuasive that person to get somebody. That was the 9/11 in my world. What was that situation? I'll give you the scenario. We had a jewelry box. My mother had a jewelry box on her dresser. And we're in fear of our mother because she's fearful. She makes people fearful. She's that intimidating. So we would never, my sister and I would never go and touch anything in her closet, on her dresser. We would not go into her bedroom and do anything because we'd be in fear we get spanked or yelled at or whatever. So then she comes to us and says, okay, somebody went into my bedroom and moved around my jewelry. I want you both to go to your room and someone come out and admit that you did it. So you're both getting punished until somebody comes out and says that they did it. And so I don't know. I didn't do it. And my sister knows that she didn't do it. So then how, if we don't know who did or did not do it, then we're fighting amongst each other. You did it. You tell me. We got to get out of our room. You do it. No, you do it. Then it's the negotiation. So here I am, just like a survivor from Vietnam, knowing how to strategize survival. I'll say, hey, if you do it, I'll do this, this, and this for you. And so my sister does that. She admits it because she's young. She doesn't know any fucking better. She admits that she did it, even though she didn't do it, but she admits she did it. She gets punished, and I don't forget what it was. Then my sister gets pissed off and gets mad at me. Well, of course she would. So then I figured out then how to control my sister. Oh, if you don't do what I say, then I'm going to go and do something bad and then blame it on you. That was how I was able to leverage power over my sister. At a young age, 5 or 6 years old. That's where that was our 9/11. That's where we were not ever going to be close. Ever. So I already experienced 9/11 way before it fucking happened. In my own house. We were the proto-fucking types. And so when your world comes crashing down, you'll know. You'll know. Because it happened to me several times over. It happened to me a long time ago. I had my own 9/11 way before 9/11. Because again, I would never touch my mother's jewelry box. And I know my sister would not either. But my mother made me into be the pariah to survive that situation. Because how would I know what kind of punishment my sister would get in that situation? I don't even remember what the punishment was. But it was enough to where then I used that as leverage to put fear in my own sister. And that was fucked up. But that was the situation that we were dealt. So imagine 9/11, something happens, and everyone's at each other's throats, blaming somebody else, knowing fully well somebody else contrived it, if that's even the storyline you want to adopt. And now you have people at each other's throats, hating on each other. And that's how that's when you develop change and figure out strategy. Who's going to strategize your survival during this climate change? I can't even say it's evil. It's just psychological operations. That's all it is. And you have to be smarter than that. But that's the thing. You know, when you're a kid, you don't know any fucking better. So then my poor sister, who now has that seed planted that I'm the evil pariah because I was made to be. Then people think that and then she's suffering her own stuff because my parents were really interesting. I left home early, so did she. And I'm made out to be the evil person because that was built in when we were 5 and 6 years old. And then later on when I realized that was the situation, but not realizing that was the situation, and I'm coming back to my sister saying, I'm so sorry for whatever I think I've done, or I couldn't even figure out what the hell I'd done, but I know I did something. But I don't know what the fuck I did. And is off in her own situation doing whatever and says, yeah, okay, whatever. Yeah, we were not meant to be close at all. That seed of destruction of any relationship that we would have as any possibility was destroyed way a long time ago. Because someone contrived a situation that never existed to see who would rise up in that situation. We were little rats in that colony in our house. We were the little fucking mice. But that's science. That's science. And you could say it's evil, you could say it's not, but that now you know where I get my innovation from. difficulty makes a genius. Difficulty does. And so you have to realize that having it easy all the time is not going to help you survive really aggressive situations and environments. There's got to be a little bit of pain and suffering and tolerance for it. And 9/11 was the pain and suffering that people are either going to rise up and survive everything that comes after 9/11, or they're going to just fold up and die. And that's the system is watching who's doing that. And so I don't have any animosity towards that situation at all, because that was just part of science. That was just part of that's the landscape. System has to do things to strengthen humans. And you can't have any grudges against that, because then I saved myself through the J world. I was able to weather the storm of those hating on me. I'm able to actually understand humans for what they are and not take things too personally, but I still have to pick apart everything. And I have the capacity to do that because I was raised in that type of situation, of psychological operations, and understanding people and their motivations and sidestepping potential pitfalls that could be so deadly. And you can't just give that to someone. That's something that you condition yourself for. And maybe some information that I have might resonate with those that are open to it. Others, just like, yeah, she's stupid. I get it. Have your own way. I don't care. Okay, so the abusive powers of the hot chicks and the old sages. Who do people listen to as far as generationally? Old boomers and hot millennials. The middle child generation X will be ignored yet again, and I don't really care at this point. Have fun with your elder boomers and your hot millennials. Who do people listen to? Hot chicks and men selling remedies and sex, and old sage selling wisdom. They will listen to hot chick man selling them absolution, or an old sage selling them relief. Bookends. And so I'm safe from most people understanding me. I am neither a hot chick or an old sage. I will fly under the radar, fine by me. Who do children listen to? Hot chicks and hot men and old sages. That's your future. People like me are ignored, and it's okay, I get it. You want to know where people end up? Just look at their friends. Hot chicks and old sages. Which is why the system had no problem with me, because I will fly under the radar with most people. I'm not an old man with a degree or an old sage, and I'm not some young girl shaking my ass telling people a remedy or a yoga pose. The system can breathe a sigh of relief. I'm not very influential. Don't worry, I won't get to your friends and family, okay? You already have them sold that you know everything. Don't listen to someone like me, because I'm neither an old sage or a hot chick. Of which I'm so thankful for. If hot chicks aren't careful, they become old sages and die suddenly. And in this environment, hot chicks don't get the luxury to become an old sage because they're dying suddenly. What's an old sage? An elderly person, a wise person who has gained a lot of wisdom throughout their life and is willing to share it with when asked. The term wise old man is an archetype described by Carl Jung and is also a classic literary figure. Sage, an herb, okay, whatever. An old sage, a character in Heroes who is wise and caring man who respects the wisdom and nature on the island of Gorm. Old sage, a character in Witcher who is a soothsayer who lives in Bennick. The old sage, okay. Hot chick, what is that? A chick who gets whatever she wants just because of the way she looks. This is from Urban Dictionary. A chick who gets whatever she wants just because of the way she looks, sounds, and acts, gets gawked at in a lot in public, and has men giving her everything she wants the minute they see her. There's usually a crowd of people complimenting her or surrounding her when she goes out or walks down the street. Can get any rank of men from the lowest to the highest, most powerful. A true hot chick will not have to worry about money because she'll probably be taken care of by guys by age 22. As in, given huge amounts, if money does not happen to run out, you know there's always someone who's willing to step up. So, yeah, I was a hot chick. I was for a minute. And so if the system wanted you dead, you would not be here. So those who are in the conspiracy will say, oh my God, the system wants to kill us. No. If you want to survive, prove to the government you are a survivor, or else shut up. And so again, if you already expect to pass away someday, what are you resisting? You were never promised a fixed lifespan. I do not expect to pass away someday, so I just assimilate to the changes and only resist when I'm physically backed into a corner. And if I'm not in the epicenter of some atom bomb or sinkhole, it does not matter anyways. I will be dead. So all of you anti-everything campaign activists, if you already expect to pass away someday, what the fuck are you resisting? You already told the system you expected to pass away, so why are you getting mad at the government when your kids die suddenly when you already expect that to happen in other circumstances? If you accept death as an outcome, it doesn't matter how it comes if you already expect it. You can't have it both ways. Maybe it's time to reconsider your lifestyle and your belief systems. Maybe you are the enemy to yourself and your friends and family. Maybe it's time to disengage. Do your job and be pleasant and be very good at your job and prioritize. Everyone chooses their own adventure. It's possible to come back from operations and oncology, but it will be painful. And you need the food, all food in the food supply. And you need the time and latitude to do that. So I don't want to say it's hopeless for those who've been under oncology or had operations. But it's going to be painful coming back from what you have taken away from yourself through the medical holistic system. And so again, the government is not your enemy. As they are giving you the opportunity to change your life and evolve, they've given you delivery services, they've given you places where you can stay home and stay safe, they've given you jobs where you can stay home, okay? You don't have to work so hard. They're telling you, it's okay, you don't have to live up to your friends and family and keep up with the Joneses. You don't have to have all that stuff, right? You don't have to look hot anymore. And so the government was never really your enemy. That they just presented you situations you had to figure out your strategy to survive. My mother was not the enemy. She wanted to see who was going to step up and survive that situation. The government's job is to make the human race smarter, not dumber. You make yourself dumb by resisting evolution. Even the card-carrying evolutionists resist evolution because they take their surgeries and drugs and alcohol and sex and worship fertility. So who's the real enemy here? It's yourself and your friends and family, because people are addicted to their friends and family. Who's the enemy? It's not your government. It's your friends and family, and who will be and are the most formidable enemy you will encounter when you decide to change. They will find ways to undermine your ability to change and even manipulate you into staying cured the same, and friends and family pull out all the stops when their energy and money train stops. It was never the government that did anything to me. It was my own friends and family I had to fight the most to save myself. Whether it was giving explanations or getting validation, I put myself in the position to fight. You get tired of fighting. You get tired of explaining yourself. You just get tired of everything. So I just left. That's why I left California. I was tired of explaining myself, tired of trying to fit in, tired of trying to do whatever. And you feel like you have to be next to your family and hang out with them or the in-laws, and you don't have to, but then you're lonely. So then you want to go and hang out with them, and then you expect that because they're your family. Oh my God, it's horrible. So I just left. Which is why most people will not survive evolution. They are subjected to and tied to their friends and family and choose to become the human sacrifice. It was never your government. It was you and your family, and of course your tight-knit group of friends you had to get validation from and permission to change. And when they did not give you permission to change, in so many words, you blamed the person who pointed out how stuck you were tied to validation in friends and family. That was how the system got to you, through addictions to validation and acceptance. Which is why I'm not liked very much and why I'll fly under the radar. I don't need to be around friends and family or get validation from them. And I speak freely and make observations that would counter people's lifestyles and belief systems. That won't make you very popular. This video contains music. Oh, ad break disabled? Okay. Whatever, that's weird. Okay. Anyways, this is how the system got to you, through addiction and validation acceptance, which is why I'm not liked very much. Haha. I don't need to be around friends and family or get validation from them. And I speak freely and make observations that would counter their lifestyle and belief system. That won't make you very popular. If anything, that will make you an enemy to them because they think you're judging them. Okay? Then stop reading my posts and reacting. I'm allowed to observe my world as it stands, and I'm allowed to write my observations. But that won't make me very popular. I get it. I understand. Okay? Enslaved people hate the freedom other people have, and so they resist and talk smack about those who figured it out. Whatever. You saw what I went through the last 7 years, and I received a lot of hate and love, but imagine your friends love bombing the shit out of you, and yeah, you're done. Which is also why Hollywood stars destroy themselves, because they get addicted to the love and the fame and the fortune. When you are addicted to the herd might protect you one day, but next day the herd can hurt you. Before climate change, the herd protected you. Now the herd will destroy you. Many who are addicted to the herds they circulate in, and for all intents and purposes, it is the closest ones that are destroying them. Now, hold on a second, I gotta look at something real quick. Give me a minute, because there's some weird shit going on. Okay. Okay, your video is blocked and can't be reviewed in Russia. No shit, really? That's crazy. Only I can see that, but I'm live now. Okay. So your video is blocked and can't be viewed in Russia. Why? Okay, well, that's whatever. That's interesting. I wonder what it is that caused that. That's okay. All right. Let me read this again. When you are addicted to the herd might protect you one day, but the next day the herd can hurt you. Can you guys see me? I don't know if you can. Before climate change, the herd protected you. Okay? Now the herd will destroy many who are addicted to the herds they circulate in. And for all intents and purposes, it is the closest ones to them that are destroying them. Because they haven't figured out how to manage the energy they have cultivated for so many years. Which is why it's just my husband and I in my house. No pets, no roommates. I don't even have too many people knocking on my door at all, which is also why I don't run groups. Okay, I understand going to work to make a paycheck. Are you living within your means? What are you doing outside of your work? How are you spending your time and your money? You can work and save yourself. If not, everything you're doing outside of your priorities is what will destroy you. Because you have to learn how to manage the energy around you, or else it becomes so influential, they serve to destroy you. You have to learn how to manage energy so it doesn't destroy you. I mean, you don't have to, and then I guess you plan to pass away someday, right? Then don't blame anyone. You chose to entertain everyone and everything until it destroyed you. And so, yeah. Anyways, I'm going to end it here because it's some weird thing that blocking me in Russia. What? Telling you how 9/11, what I think 9/11 happened? It's still speculation, but I don't know. Okay. All right. Well, you guys understand just how shit works and figure it out, but I don't want to become a hot chick, and I don't want to be an old sage. I'm going to be middle-aged, fly under the radar, and watch everything just supernova. All right, bye.